Hey guys, so today I got a new compressor. Well, I didn't get it today, but I got it like a couple of weeks ago. But anyway, I got a new compressor and I wanted to take a look at it because so far I think this thing is absolutely amazing for a lot of reasons. And in this video, I hope to share with you as much about it in as little time as I possibly can. Hopefully give you some good insights on whether you should actually buy this or not. I'm not going to tell you shouldn't or you should, but I'm going to give you an idea, hopefully, of what kind of tools you can expect to run off it, what kind of maintenance you can expect, and generally overall what I think of it. So to start off, I will start with what kind of tools you can run off of it, because chances are if you're buying a compressor, you're not like this, you're not using it to put air in your car tires. Obviously you can do that with something like this, but well, for about $450 US, at least where I live in Virginia, that's kind of expensive to put air in your tires, and it's definitely way overkill. So you're likely going to be buying it to run something like this. This is a pneumatic impact gun. It also happens to be Kobalt, and I really like this. This is a 1/2-inch impact gun, 375 foot-pounds in reverse, and I really like this. However, the compressor I was using was the Kobalt 8-gallon oil-free compressor, and it, well, anyway, the thing had a lot of overheating issues, and you could tell that it was built to a price, but for what it was good for filling up car tires and stuff, but not so much for impact guns and stuff. So this, on the other hand, is much better. You can basically run the impact guns on it continuously. If it's, one gun like this, probably up to this size, and because this draws probably about 7 cubic feet per minute, something like that, and you'll definitely be able to get off probably all 4 wheels before you actually have to let the compressor catch up. It does, you are going to have to worry about the pump running a lot if you want to run drills, or say one of the air tools I really like is a pneumatic angle grinder. I think these things are absolutely great. If you can get one, get it, because I think these are much better than regular electric angle grinders. But the problem is, like the impact gun, they take like 7 cubic feet of air per minute, and this is only rated for 5.5 at 90 psi, which is definitely a little bit underrated. However, that is underrated mostly due to the motor that's on. It's only 2 horsepower motor, and the pump, if you've been shopping, well, you'll notice that the pump on this is actually the same pump that's on its bigger brother, which is actually $50 more. So if you can get its bigger brother in your garage, it doesn't have wheels on it. It's directly bolted to the floor. It's 60 gallons, and it's got the same pump with a bigger motor on it. But the problem is it's only 240 volt. I don't have 240 in my garage, and getting it wired in would have been an absolute pain. Plus, this thing weighs like 200 pounds, and it's on wheels. The other one bolts directly to the floor, so I would have had to have a forklift to get it in here. And, well, when I move out, I don't know how I would deal with that. This is hard enough to get out of a truck on its own. In fact, I'll show you later on, we actually broke it. But no worries, it still works. So we'll go ahead and take you off the tripod and move you in a little bit closer, and we'll start talking about some more of the features. I already mentioned it's a 2 horsepower motor, and the pump is actually one of these big 10 cubic feet per minute pumps. However, the issue is that the motor's not actually powerful enough to give it the full 5 horsepower, so you won't be able to actually get that out of it. Like, it's rated for 5.5 at 90 psi, so you're going to be looking at that. That's a pretty realistic estimate. However, this is dual voltage, so if you get 240, then you can rewire it for 240. You're still only going to get 2 horsepower, so I would recommend putting a bigger motor on it, because it is standard motor mounts, and you just need a slightly bigger pulley. That being said, I think that that's probably something I'm going to do with this. I'm sure that would void the warranty, but by the time I move out and have to a place I actually have 240, then the warranty will be long gone anyway, because I do expect this to last that long. So I want to talk more about the pump, because the pump is basically the heart of the compressor, and it is, for all intents and purposes, the most important part, other than the tank. So the pump is completely cast iron. It is oiled. which is a huge plus. Let me tell you something real quickly. Don't buy an oilless compressor, especially if you're in a shop setting. It will not last. It will maybe last you a year. You'll have to replace it. Oiled pumps are the way to go. They're far, far superior than oilless pumps. Just stay away from oilless pumps. Besides, I mean, it really is an investment, and if you're going to be running air tools off of it, especially if you're making a living off of it, then it's really important to have a nice compressor with a pump that's going to last. There's a reason why industrial compressors, you never see oilless pumps on 80-gallon tanks. There's a pretty good reason for that. So moving on with the pump, it does come with a filter. However, I'm probably going to replace this with something to actually dry the air as well. And also, as far as changing the oil goes, and a lot of people are afraid of that when it comes to oiled compressors, but you do get a sight glass here. It tells you if it's full, empty, it tells you how much oil, this, that, and the other, and it's the regular Kobalt oil. I picked some up for my first oil change here. They sell this at Lowe's, so don't be worried. This is a 16-ounce bottle. It takes 8.5 ounces, so yeah, should be able to get almost 2 oil changes with this, and this was like $4, so not expensive. It says to change the oil every 200 hours or 3 months, and for the first oil change, it should be done after the first 50 hours of operation. I haven't actually operated this for 50 hours, but once I do, I will change the oil. It also does have an oil check area. Go ahead and unscrew this. You're not going to be able to see the oil down there, but this is where you'd also put the oil in. So it's nice threaded metal, and you get a nice breather cap. So after I drop it on the floor, and then we'll move on to the tank and the regulator. So the tank is 30 gallons. Of course, you probably already knew that. 30 gallons at 155 psi isn't bad for a small home shop areas, given that this is basically the biggest that you can get on 120 volt, which is kind of sad, but that's kind of what you got to deal with. So, you know, live and learn. So it's 30-gallon tank. The drain valve is directly on the bottom, so you will get basically all the water out of it. It's great. I'm probably going to extend that out to the front. I've seen other people doing that. And then you just have the valve. It's a little easier to drain it. But one thing I do really want to mention, and it's kind of important, is the regulator assembly. Now, this is basically coming off of this one nipple right here. And in fact, when we were unloading this from the truck, like I mentioned earlier, we broke it. In fact, we actually dropped this and it bent this whole thing back. It bent the regulator, and we dodged a bullet because I actually happen to have another one of these nipples. Luckily, we didn't break it all the way off. It just split, so I was able to take it out and replace it. But, you know, still, that was a lot of extra work. Plus, I almost destroyed the regulator. I got very, very lucky. I just put this in the vise and bent it back, and somehow I think we didn't actually bend the stem of the regulator, which is great, even though I'll probably replace the regulator anyway. Also, this is not the air fitting that you get with it. You just get a standard, one of the small 1/4-inch ones. This is one of the bigger automotive type ones, and I do highly recommend using these. They really do increase your flow, and you know, it makes a lot of difference as far as I'm concerned, especially if you're going to be running impact guns. If you're just going to be, you know, using this for like blowing dust off of stuff, then it doesn't really matter, but it's nice to have anyway. Plus, I got these on clearance from Tractor Supply for like $2 for a pack, so pretty good deal. As far as the on switch and the cutoff, I believe that this is actually a standard part, and you just flip it to auto. Essentially just leave it there. It'll automatically fill itself. You have your pressure relief valve, and then you also have the line coming from the tank to tell it when to cut off. And I'm pretty sure that we probably damaged this because it doesn't always cut off at 155. It usually cuts off around 140, sometimes 150, sometimes anywhere in there. So I'm pretty sure we damaged this because I had them, you know, I was very meticulous with this because when I was getting this, I actually went to 3 different stores to buy this, and out of the 6 that I looked at, this was the only one that was in perfect shape. So I'll tell you some of the problems that you should definitely look for before you buy these. One thing that I did notice is on a lot of them, the front valve assembly, like I was talking about, was pushed back and it was broken. And one of them, it was completely broken off. That's kind of a big issue when, you have a almost $500, piece of equipment with tax. I don't know about you, but I don't have $500 to spend on a new one of these, every time, something breaks or whatever. You shouldn't have to deal with that. So definitely look for that. Another thing is the oil plug on the top. I looked at several of them. They didn't even have it. So definitely get that, because if these are sitting in the store or at a box, the chances of dust getting into this and dirt and debris and no telling what else is pretty good. Once that gets into the oil, gets pulled up into the cylinders, well, you're asking for trouble. It's like you want to keep the oil in your car clean, you want to keep the oil in this clean. One more note about the oil: don't use regular motor oil. It is different, and you will most likely end up destroying the pump. So I think that's probably about it. I don't know if I mentioned it weighs almost 200 pounds. It's made in America, which is great. And you get a nice big tag. I always love having nice big made in the USA tags on my tools, especially since you get so much crap that's just made in China. It's absolute crap. And I believe Horrible Freight actually has a very similar compressor to this. And it's, of course, I'm sure it's Chinese made. It's not nearly as good a quality. I was considering buying it. It's like, I think it's like $260, $300, something like that. It's much cheaper, but it's nowhere near the quality of this. So if you're debating between this one, the Tractor Supply offering, and the Horrible Freight offering, I would highly recommend saving up for this one. It is the most expensive by quite a bit out of all of them, but you get a standard pump, standard motor. If 10 years down the road you have to replace the pump, well, this is a standard size pump. Same thing with the motor, standard size motor. And in theory, you could take this off, put a bigger motor on it, and most likely get more volume of air per minute out of it, which is, it's kind of a good thing to have upgradability. With the oilless compressors like the 8-gallon Kobalt 8-gallon oilless compressor that I had, it's just, you can't change it. Once it's broken, it's broken, and there's no fixing it. Something like this, very repairable. It comes with a 3-year warranty, but it's a limited warranty, and it's by far the best warranty out of the 3, but I kind of doubt you're going to get them to offer that, or I'm sorry, not offer, but honor that, because you know how warranties are these days. And if you're buying something like this, yeah. And as anything, safety is a big deal, because these are holding 155 pounds per square inch, right? And this is 30 gallons. If this tank explodes, anybody near it is going to most likely be dead. So you definitely don't want to cheap out on a big air compressor, because they're going to be made out of lower quality steel and probably also thinner steel. So when this starts to rust, it's going to become a hazard, a lot quicker. All these tanks are going to rust from the inside out at some point, but you might as well buy something that's a nice thick tank to begin with, and then hopefully you won't have to worry about that. Also, I know this isn't a big deal, and I've rambled on for, far longer than I wanted to, but these handles are great. Unlike the Horrible Freight one and the Tractor Supply offering, you see these hoses? I don't know about you, but I have a couple of these, and it's irritating to have them all over the ground. My family complains upon tripping on them when they come out to the garage, so hang them right on the handles. I can put both my hoses. You see, there's another one over there. I can hang all my hoses on this, and it's just great. I back it up into that corner there, plug it in the wall, and I'm set to go. One more thing, real quickly. Speaking of plugging into the wall, this cable is a very nice thick cable. It is not like those, crappy Chinese cables. I'm sure it probably was made in China, but it's very, very beefy, and I don't see this being a fire hazard. When you're drawing potentially 15 amps through this, you don't want a thin cable. And by the way, I am running this on a 15 amp breaker. I'm sure it would pop the breaker on a 10 amp circuit. So just be known, you want a 15, preferably 20 amp breaker. And you don't want to plug a whole bunch of other things into the outlet as well. Also, it does specifically say in the instruction manual not to use an extension cord with this, which is kind of a big deal because, like I said, this thing could draw 15 amps, and you don't want to melt an extension cord or catch your house on fire. Plus, it actually specifically says that the circuit be no longer than 40 feet from the breaker. So that's another thing. The way my garage is set up, I got my breaker box there, so in theory I could wire 240, but I'm plugging it into that outlet there. However, if I turn around, I've got another outlet over there, and I bet that if we did and we looked, this would probably be more than 40 feet of wire from the breaker to that outlet. So that's kind of something to be careful of. If you're in your garage, a lot of people have their breaker in the garage, so not that big of a deal. But I think that's probably about it. If I didn't cover anything, you got questions, comments, I messed up on something, I said something wrong, or any way I could improve the videos, please do leave a comment below. I love reading them. And I try replying to them, and I try to reply to as many of them as possible. I hope this is a much better review than the review of my last air compressor, but this is a much better product in my opinion. I would say if you're debating on another 30-gallon air compressor, this is probably the one you should get if you can afford it. I mean, $500 is kind of a lot of money, but it's a tool that's going to last, and it's American made, so you're really paying for that is what it comes down to. And you don't get as much of that Chinese, you know, we're going to cut every corner possible. You can tell they could have cut corners on the cables. They could have cut corners on the motor. I mean, this is probably an off-the-shelf motor. This is probably a $200 motor when it comes down to it. So, you know, after you price something like this out, it's very expensive. To try to build something like this, that's what I was going to originally do. And overall, I would definitely recommend this. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and have a very nice day.